Welcome back, horror fans. Today we're cranking up the tension to 11 because we are talking about the Silent Hill 2 remake. A game that's got the horror community buzzing, theorizing, and biting their nails in anticipation. I mean, the reviews are already out, and the hype is through the roof, but as of right now, we're still waiting for the actual release. And let me tell you, every second of waiting feels like being stuck in Silent Hill's fog. What's lurking just ahead? Well, we're about to find out. Now let's just take a moment to appreciate what we're dealing with here. Silent Hill 2, the original released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2. It's not just a horror game, it's a psychological thriller, an emotional gut punch, and a masterclass in existential dread, all wrapped up in fog-covered streets and grotesque monsters. Now, it's the game that introduced us to James Sunderland, Pyramid Head, and a story that cuts deep into the psyche, guilt, trauma, grief. It's all there. So when the announcement of the remake dropped, people lost their minds, and honestly, how could they not? Now, here we are in 2024, more than 20 years later, okay? And we're getting a fully reimagined version of the game from Bloober Team. Now, for those who don't know Bloober Team, they've been making waves in the horror genre with games like Layers of Fear and The Medium. So naturally, they're no strangers to psychological horror, and Silent Hill 2 is the game to test their chops. Okay, now moving on, let's talk about what makes this remake so exciting. This isn't just a graphical overhaul though. The new visuals are straight up stunning. We're talking full on next gen graphics, textures, realistic lighting, and the kind of atmosphere that can make you feel like you're actually walking through a dense, suffocating fog. Now, Bloober Team has worked closely with Konami to ensure the town of Silent Hill is as oppressive as ever. Every shadow, every flicker of light feels deliberate, designed to unnerve you. Now, one of the most talked about changes, is the shift from the original fixed camera angles to an over-the-shoulder perspective. Much like the Resident Evil 2 remake that came out in 2019. Crazy to think that's like half a decade ago, right? Anyways, some fans were a little wary at first, but let's be real. This makes the game feel more modern, more immersive. You're right there with James, exploring those hauntingly quiet streets, and trust me, it's going to make the horror feel way more personal. Now, those fixed angles gave you the cinematic feel, but the new approach, it's going to feel more terrifying because, well, it's in your face, right? But of course, the heart of Silent Hill 2 isn't just its monsters or its foggy atmosphere, It's the story. James Sunderland's journey through Silent Hill is about grief, guilt, and coming to terms with the loss of his wife, Mary. It's this deeply emotional and psychological element that made the game stand out all those years ago. And from what we know about the remake so far, they're staying faithful to that core, but with some modern twists. Now, we've seen some hints that there might be a new narrative sprinkled throughout, Now, the devs have been pretty tight-lipped about this, but there's been buzz about possible expanded storylines or alternate takes on some key moments. Now, could we be looking at more in-depth character backstories, new twists on the multiple endings, maybe even additional content that ties into the greater Silent Hill universe? Now, whatever it is, Fans are already speculating, and we can't wait to get our hands on it. Now, let's take a moment to talk about the characters, okay? Silent Hill 2 had some of the most memorable and disturbing characters in gaming history. Now, first, you've got Maria, a doppelganger of James's deceased wife, who plays a huge part in unraveling the story's mysteries. Then there's Angela, whose tragic storyline was one of the most gut-wrenching in the original. And let's not forget the iconic Pyramid Head, a terrifying manifestation of James's guilt and one of the most recognizable villains in horror video games. Now, with this remake, we're not just seeing improved visuals, okay? We're seeing enhanced facial animations and voice acting that can really bring out the emotions in these characters. Bloober Team has said they've overhauled the motion capture and dialogue delivery to make every interaction hit even harder. So if you thought the original scenes were intense, just wait until you see them in the remake. Imagine Angela's breakdown on that burning staircase. Now with next-gen graphics and emotionally raw performances, yeah, we're in for something good, ladies and gentlemen. Now, a lot of people are wondering about how the gameplay will feel, and we already know about that over-the-shoulder camera, about what combat, puzzles, and exploration. The original was known for its cryptic puzzles and its tense, sometimes clunky combat. So what can we expect this time around? Now, well, from the gameplay we've seen so far, it looks like Bloober Team has streamlined the combat mechanics. We're talking smoother controls, a more fluid inventory system, and what seems to be a greater emphasis on environment interaction. But don't worry, they haven't turned this into a fast-paced action game. Silent Hill 2 is still about that slow burn, the dread of hearing the static on your radio and knowing something is out there, lurking in the fog. Now, puzzles are making a comeback too. We've seen snippets of new puzzle mechanics that look like they'll retain the brain-bending challenge of the original, but with a more modern flair. It's not just about turning cranks and collecting keys anymore. From what we've heard, some of the puzzles might be more integrated into the environment and story, making them feel less like obstacles and more like immersive experiences. Now here's something really interesting. There's been a lot of talk about the remake having a new meta-narrative layer. Remember how in Silent Hill 2 the town itself felt like a reflection of James's guilt? Well, some fans are speculating that Bloober Team is going to take that idea even further. Could we be looking at a game that's self-aware in some way? Like it knows you've played the original and starts toying with your expectations? Maybe that's just the horror geek in me dreaming, but hey, Silent Hill 2 has always been about bending reality and distorting your sense of self. If there's anyone who can tap into that psychological horror element, it's Bloober Team. So keep your eyes peeled for any signs that this game might be pulling a fast one on you. So, moving on, where does that leave us, okay? Is the Silent Hill 2 remake shaping up to be a modern-day horror masterpiece, perhaps? Well, we'll see. It seems to be shaping up to be that way because from what we've seen, Bloober Team is doing everything right, okay? They're honoring the source material, bringing it into the modern era with upgraded visuals, gameplay tweaks, and even new story elements. But the essence of what made Silent Hill 2 so special, it's still there. The oppressive atmosphere, the psychological horror, the characters you can't help but feel for. It is all coming back. So, what do you think? Are you ready to dive back into the fog? What are you most excited about in the Silent Hill 2 remake? Is it the revamped visuals, the deeper emotional beats, or maybe you're just ready to be freaked out by Pyramid Head all over again? Whatever it is, let's talk about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because trust me, we've got plenty more horror content coming your way. And until next time, stay safe and try not to get lost in the fog, okay? Peace.